Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Somebody's speaker's loud. Welcome back to the King and I Life podcast, hosted by myself, Soul Touch of the Poet, and my man's
son Soul Lex up in here.
Welcome back, welcome back. We have a great show for you tonight, but before we get into that, we're going to do a little housekeeping.
Yes, sir.
Follow us on whatever podcast platform that you choose. We are worldwide, so go ahead, definitely check us out. We do segments of African-American historical figures, places, and events. So go ahead on our podcast channel and check those out. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and we're going to be doing Patreon up. So Lex, what else you got for them?
Yes, sir. So once again, this episode is sponsored by Uncut Legacy clothing line. Once again, we just want to send a shout out to them. You can find them on Instagram at Uncut Legacy, Twitter at Legacy Uncut, and their email is info@uncutlegacy.com. So again, please check them out, man. They're doing great things with their clothing line, and I can attest to it that their quality is great. So when you order from them, just know that you get a quality product.
Right. And so our topic tonight is identifying housing injustice, and we have two distinguished guests with us. Our first guest will introduce yourself, Miss Soummer Moore-Crawford.
Hello, everyone. I'm Soummer Crawford out of Detroit, Michigan. I'm a community leader, community liaison. And so thank you for having me on this evening. We're going to talk about housing injustice and how to identify it in various ways. Thank you.
And we also have our other distinguished guest, Miss T. Sanders. Go ahead and introduce yourself, ma'am.
Hi, I'm T. Sanders. I am a renters and tenant organizer in Detroit, Michigan. I also do things on the state and federal level dealing with housing. So I am so glad to be here. I am very much community. I am a mother of 5. I birthed 1 and I adopted 4. So I definitely deal with diversity a lot. And I'm glad to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us. So as you said, we're talking about identifying housing injustice, and through the years there have been many situations where housing opportunities were limited to, for many Americans, mainly minorities. And in 2021, a lot of these issues still persist at an alarming rate. So we want to jump into that and just dig into it and talk about all the nuances and the challenges with that. So ladies, go ahead and let's go ahead and get into this.
All right, T, I'm gonna have you kick it off. Go ahead.
Thanks. I definitely wanted to bring aware that every state is getting a part of CARES Act money. It's for relief for the COVID-19 issues. It's always been there. It's a hazard act. They just call it CARES Act this time. Each state is going to get a certain amount of money. So my challenges, I feel like, about this certain amount of money is that they are not approving people. If you look at the guidelines, for one person, you can make $90,000, and for a couple, you can make $180,000. Well, with that being said, it's been people being denied at alarming rates, making even less than that. So my challenge, or my actually, I'm asking people, my dare is that people go out and follow the CARES Act money for your area, so you can make sure your people in your community is getting helped.
Okay. So what in your professional, or in your from your understanding, what are like the major difficulties in people getting approved with this?
Basically, they're being discriminatory to me. A lot of times people need help, and they first make them go through their Department of Human Services. I don't know if it's called what it's called in everybody else state, but it's Department of Human and Health Services. And then you get a tracking number. Now you can be approved or denied through there, but it's a streaming line. Then they send you over to 2 organizations that's helping in Detroit. If you want me to name them, I can, but it's like Wayne Metro and also United Community Housing Coalition. Well, people apply. And when they apply, a lot of times they still don't get the adequate help that they need. They are just getting streamlined or being denied. And then at the end of the day, if so many people denied, there's money left over for the city, state, and federal to move monies around instead of help people like they should.
So pretty much, go ahead.
Is there a certain would you say criteria specifically that they're looking for as far as like a reason to deny these people?
So they don't give us the denial criteria, but they give you what you can be approved on. And so, they do it as a single parent, a single person. They do it as a family together, or a mother with children or a father with children. And with that being said, sometimes just because, I don't have a reason why, I actually am trying now to work with my economic justice organizer and small business organizers to see why are we being denied through the CARES Act when there's federal money set here for us during this COVID-19 pandemic.
And then I want to speak to that as well. It's almost like the information from the other side is not being disseminated properly. It's like a lot of people are not aware about the funding and the process. And so a lot of times when you have funding like the CARES Act money, it can be overwhelming if you don't know. It's a lot of hoops to jump through. It's not an easy process. And so people get discouraged and they don't want to get involved in it at all. And then it's like, if I get this money, will it be tracked? Do I have to pay it back? There is not a lot of questions and answers available in regards to the CARES Act money. So it's like, if it's not used, then it goes back, or where does it really go? And that's the situation. It's not properly being tracked. The oversight is not there properly. And when you ask about it, it's like shush, shush, shush. And when it's for the community, when it's for residents and tenants, those dollars need to be used for what it is intended for.
So basically what it's coming down to, just put it in layman's terms, is when they send it out to certain individuals, it's tracked. But when they keep it in, wash it through their so-called system, it's not tracked. If I'm understanding that correctly.
Exactly. That is right. They just have your city council clear that there's monies left over. So they never give you what's going to happen next unless you have a committee to follow it. So that's why I challenge, or I dare many people out here, if you're going to be a community organizer or a community leader, please follow the money that they give us, because at the end of the day, if they're giving us something, this is like stuff we already pay taxes into. This is stuff that our family worked hard for, so we can have just in case any kind of pandemics like this happen. And so in their eyes, we're going to send it out here. We're going to send it to the Black and brown community. We're going to see if they're going to go out and apply. And those that do apply, for instance, in December, we had an exact number. In Detroit, we had 3,000 applicants that got through. And then once it got through, only 1,200 was approved. So what happened to the other 1,800? You know what I'm saying? What happened to those people? And then how did you justify that they got denied when they was under the criteria that you sent out? Because you only send us the qualifying criteria, is not what would make you get denied.
Wow.
So me and Sun Solex, we always have this conversation about the system. Not being a part of it, being a part of it, how to make it better, having our own, system within the system. What is the biggest hurdle when it comes to the elected officials in your area when it comes to this?
I want to speak that a little bit. First of all, before we go into further detail, we must say prayers to everybody in Texas right now.
Yes,
I got to send it out, because right now, this is where the CARES Act money really can come into place, with this situation here. And, it's going to be interesting how the money will be utilized in the state of Texas. And so, in the hoops, in the platforms in which they will have to jump through the political system. A lot of times in states and in cities, federal dollars are provided to probably a couple of main organizations that are identified. And then after that, it may or may not be enough people to help to disseminate the money properly. Or it could be you may not, how do I want to say it? Because I want to make sure I say this right. Some people, based upon, it could be stereotypical, they check into your background. Do you really need this money? Why do you need it? Or they try to lessen the amount that you may need for the situation that is for your home, or what you applied for. So when you speak about political leaders, they're not really speaking about it. They're not knocking on doors or really coming to communities and letting their communities in which voted them in really know about it. Now, some are not. It may not seem as a level of importance, I would say.
Yeah.
And then to piggyback on that, in my eye view of these politicians, they do enough, especially just around voting time. So the CARES Act is right now during the voting times, because we're voting for our city council, our mayor, and a couple of state officials, right? So this is where you got to put this in their face, like, what are you doing about this, and what can we do? And by the way, who's overseeing this, and who's on the committee to approve or deny? Because at the end of the day, you can send two of the same people in with the same income, and that one person would be approved and one person would be denied. What are the reasons for the denial? What are the reasons why this person was approved? And then you stipulate on how much you're helping people. If you sent all these, millions of dollars in to help, why are you not saying, okay, at a family of so many people, we're going to help you with so much if we can? You know what I'm saying? Because some people got laid off right when COVID started, March 16th. You know what I'm saying? When they identified it, because we know COVID was here long before then, but they identified it March 16th. And it's people that got let go from their job right then and there. And so they behind in rent. We talking about now, come March coming up soon, which a couple of weeks from now, they'll be 1 year behind. And if your rent $900 a month, what we talk about over into the tens of thousands that you owe, not to mention, fees that they're not supposed to charge us. So basically, we really need to follow up on this CARES Act and have overseas. I mean, people in the community can do it. They can be a CARES Act committee, and they can definitely follow, because we pay these politicians with our tax dollars.
Yeah, I definitely agree. People need to be active in their communities. And it's interesting that you mentioned Texas and how it pertains to the CARES Act, because I've been watching the news lately, and it's ironic to me that they're not part of the national grid. And then they have the politicians who wanted, the Republican politicians, or whoever down there, who wanted, it to be deregulated. So they was talking about how much it would cost for a megawatt or kilowatts of energy and this, that, and the other. And I'm kind of like, well, if the CARES Act money goes down there, is it really, really, really going to be disseminated properly? Is it really going to go into the pockets of the people who really need it? Because it's just mind blowing to me, especially with former Governor Rick Perry, who used to be, the Secretary of Energy where I work, and him saying that people in Texas would rather be without power than to be part of the national grid. So I'm kind of wondering, if the CARES Act money was sent to Texas properly, would it be properly disseminated?
9 times out of 10, no.
Correct. And then for the first process they started down there is with FEMA. FEMA has showed up. You know what I'm saying? So FEMA is a whole nother entity that has a separate hazard fund. And then with the CARES Act, what usually politicians want you to do is not apply, because most people be like, I'm going to be denied anyway, so I'm not going to apply. Well, how do you know? You don't know. Exactly. And then most white people, they apply and they do go through, they get a chance to go through. Even those rich and big corporations, they get some kind of slack when we don't even get slack when we're suffering in our communities. That's ridiculous.
Right.
And then I'm sorry. And what people need to understand is, when you apply, if you get denied, there's a such thing as an appeal. Mm-hmm. You need to appeal the process. And some people get frustrated. They don't want to read. They don't want to deal with it. But those are your dollars. Those dollars, there is accountability. And so use it for, or apply for what you need it for. It's the grant dollars that have been provided to these states, but will it get to certain states and it may not be properly utilized, certain cities especially. And we know that. Right. T just mentioned FEMA. They'll be like, okay, we'll go for the FEMA dollars. If you receive the FEMA dollars and you don't apply you can't apply for the CARES Act. It's going to be all types of lies, hoops, and everything to jump through in order to get you discouraged for applying for funding, federal funding.
Right. So
And the crazy part about that is, hearing you guys describe it, when people are actually applying for these things, they have to go through so much, and that's the most discouraging part about it. But I again agree with you, ladies. Just keep going. Just keep, if they tell you need this, go get that. Just don't give up on the process, because in the end, this is something that was provided for us. You know what I'm saying? In our community. So I'm just encouraging people to please don't give up. Seek out whatever, kind of help that's in your area. Just do everything you can before, you just say, well, I've been not on this and this. I'm just not going to worry about it anymore. No, it takes perseverance to get these things done, people. So please just keep trying.
Yeah, it also takes attention to detail, because it's and also piggybacking off what you ladies are saying. A lot of people don't like to read the fine print, and I know in a lot of situations denials come because you did not read the fine print. You might have needed to put a period after this, but you put a comma because that's what you thought you should have put there. Yep. And when you get denied, you're like, oh, I did everything I was supposed to do, but make sure. Stay the course, read the fine print, have somebody look it over for you. If you have these community organizations out there, make sure you go to them so they can help you, get through this paperwork and make it easier for you so that you don't get as frustrated and, you stay determined.
One thing I want to say, and I'm right now, my brain is like, I can't remember the language for it, but here in Michigan, we have a heavy Arabic community. And we also have a lot of Asians and different, Indians, and I'm pretty sure in various states cities around the country, there is an issue with translation. The documents, people, they may say, oh, okay, it's up on the website, however, the way it's presented, Google Translator, from what I understand, is not the best, for a lot of people. And so it's like, there's a lot of hoops there. A lot of communities are not considering the importance of having a translator to help those in need to get access to the funding or the resources that, are available to them.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's jump into the causes of housing injustice. Poverty is a big thing. And it there's always a battle about minimum wage this and minimum wage that, inflation and all types of things. I know a lot of people that I know, they go to certain places and they talk about cost of living is low, this, that, and the other. And my pushback to that is the cost of living may be low, but you also have to be able to earn a wage and able to live comfortably in that area. But, when it comes to housing, housing prices are just crazy.
They are.
Rental prices is crazy. So what programs should be in place, or what legislation should be in place to cap rental expenses?
Can you talk about the AMI?
Yes. So I am gonna get to AMI, but first I'm gonna talk about number one. There's nothing in the Constitution that give us a rent cap or where you have to pay a percentage of your income. They have nothing in the Constitution. So we need to come together, every state, and state our needs for housing. And then we need to change the Constitution. And yes, it's going to take 13 years to change it, but guess what? We got to stick in for the fight, because at least 13 years from now, whoever our lineage is, whoever our generational child is going to catch the gratifications out of it. I'm very in light, the Most High, that the Most High would take our children through, that our children would be on top and be entrepreneurs and able to help each other among the community. They need to start like community trust funds where communities can purchase houses for people in their community that they know only make certain incomes. They also need to get from up under these big corps getting all these discounts, because big corporations, when we had so in Michigan a couple of years ago, we had an emergency manager in Detroit. We had all things going haywire, and they just didn't put in place what our needs were or what a stepping stone is. And then our mayor, he's going around telling people, oh, we only got 55,000 homeless people. Well, that's a whole bunch, okay? But they're not counting people that live with people. They're not counting people that's lived in their car. They're not counting people that's living outside. They only count the people that go through the shelter or get some kind of needs to say that they're homeless, like if they're applying for DHS or something like that. That's where their account come from. But here in Michigan, if we was to, in Detroit, if we were supposed to tell all the homeless people to come downtown, we'll flood downtown with it, because that's how many people are homeless, because they don't have a cap on the homeless criterias. Oh. That's one. Two, when you talk about segregation, everybody should have a human right to be treated the same, no matter what your race, color, creed, any of that is. And then they have income. To me, is an income racism out here. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to make 3 times the amount of your rent. Well, at one point I was making no dollars, no cents, but I thank God, you know, and I thank Most High that I was able to find a program that really helped me. But it's a project-based voucher that stayed with my apartment. And when I got hired into my job, I actually graduated out the program. But because of COVID-19, they have not made me move. But I would not pay the rent that I'm paying here at all, because here is really a stepping stone for you to get your life together. But that's what we need to institute. But, you know, we talk about the racism. Then let's talk about returning citizens. Returning citizens, they're redlining them. They're not letting them do a thing. Or is these big corps that bought these properties, we're going to put y'all in these properties, but we're not going to fix nothing. So you live in deplorable measures just for you to get out of jail and try to rebuild yourself. And you know, you don't have good self-esteem, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, access to healthcare. You know, most of the people don't even know how to fill out the paperwork to get healthcare. That's why it should be universal access to healthcare. Because why can't you walk into the hospital if you're having a mental breakdown? Or why can't you walk in the hospital if you cut your hand? It's so many people patching themselves together with butterfly stitches, and then you wonder why years later you have pains from that. So these are the housing injustice that's going on, and it's just so sad, and it's much, much more. But that was just just to keep on topic.
And then too, speaking of that, she hit a lot, homelessness. There's a lot of people who are homeless with children. And then they tell you, if you're homeless and you have a son, then you can't stay here. So there we're breaking up the family. We're breaking up the family structure. Or it's a family together, and if it's a male, he can't live with them. He has to go someplace else. And then people don't understand, because of homelessness, there is another federal act out there called the Mckinney-Vento. A lot of people do not know about Mckinney-Vento. It's unbelievable in the school system. Basically, you go in and you speak to the counselor. If you are homeless, that counselor is supposed to have gas cards ready for you, have transportation, all the needs set up and the resources for your children, so that it does not disrupt their educational process. And that's what's happening. They do not, again, you have those who feel like the dollars belong to them. When it's federal dollars. You know, T hit on a lot about the healthcare and incarceration. The treatment is unreal. And then I'm going to talk about, she's going to go into the AMI, but here in Detroit, the rent has gone up tremendously. I mean, we have areas now, probably within the last year, people are paying $900 to $1,200 to live in certain areas where it's like they're being priced out. You know, their income is not meeting that. The average woman who's single with children, she may make at least $12.50 an hour on the low end. But then you just want to speak about the male. The jobs that they have to drive out of the city to get those jobs, to get access. And then there's no proper transportation. So it's a whole plethora of things that's going on here, and as well as in many other cities.
Right. Before we move any further, for our audience out there, if you would like to contribute to this conversation, hop on the line. Text your name 347-778-1082. We will get you on the line so you can provide input, ask questions that you have to ask from our guest. So, T, what else did you have to say moving on from that?
Yeah, so right now we're fighting for area medium income, because when we So back in 2016, I came back to Detroit because I had left and went down to Tifton, Georgia, a little country to Hicktown down by Florida line. But it wasn't for me. So I came back up to the city. And when I came up to the city, I started going to city council meetings and like listening to the budgets and things like that. I'm like, whoa, I wonder, do people understand that rent is about to go up tremendously within the next couple of years? So I used to go to the soup kitchens. I used to be like, hey, you guys, I need to get you guys galvanized together because right now we're paying, in 2016, the average rent was like $450 a month. And when I started talking to everyone, I said, look, they're going to go up every 6 months to a year until we hit a certain amount. And what they're aiming for is that $900. And they came up with $900 because they were using the income in 2 suburban areas in Detroit. And they kept taking into consideration that we got the big 3 here, but the big 3 had laid people off, brought them back in at a lower wage. So people wasn't making that big money they was making before due to the crisis we had regardless. You know what I'm saying? Right. So with that being said, right now, we are going back and forth with our city council, which is going to have to still go to the state and federal level about us to use the AMI in your area. We don't know if they're going to do it by districts. We don't know if they're going to do it by the whole city, but here nor there, people are on set incomes here. They may make $10,000 to $12,000 a year. That's the base pay for people that's on Social Security on a set income. But those that retire from the plant, they're making maybe $30,000, close to $30,000 or $40,000 with their pension included, but they're being discounted on programs and things they need to participate in. So every city should fight for an area medium income, because if they're charging rent $900 for people that barely make $1,000, everybody gonna be homeless because you got to make 3 times your rent.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's interesting, you know, when you talk about segregation and redlining is still a problem. To me, that's mind blowing. That, you know, redline is still a problem, and it's not. Is it as overt as it used to be, or is it more one of those subtle things?
They bring it in as subtle, but we have found when people were renting out apartment buildings, they were like, renting out, the rent is this amount, but we're not taking people of the, without being the white ethnic or Caucasian ethnic. This one guy even put a sign in his window. He was the maintenance guy, no colors allowed. Like, who do that? Like in 2021, like who do that? Right, you know, we had to go out and take pictures and everything because we just could not believe it. But it's real talk. And so why I say the segregation is now like a money segregation is like, if you don't make a certain amount of money, you can't stay in a certain neighborhood. So, and that's messed up because at the end of the day, I was brought up in a great neighborhood. I didn't even know, heck, we was called middle income at the time. But, you know, I thought we was richest because the way we brought our family together and we had community and things like that. Well, come to find out when they broke it down to me that we were on the lower end of middle income, which was one step from poverty. So what they do now is not only do they, your race, creed, gender, they come in now with this certain amount of money. So it's just like, no matter what, it's like we can't defeat to get permanent housing for people. Kids can't go to school right without permanent housing. You know what I'm saying? Come on now.
Yeah, you know, I want to add to that. What amazes me, especially like here in the city of Detroit, it's like, or in certain areas, because right now they're building up our downtown area, and it's always a community meeting as to say, oh yeah, we're going to have a certain amount of homes where you don't have to make over a certain income, like 20% of the apartments are being rented out. Then all of a sudden, after the cameras are off, the noise is gone, and people have voted to say yes, we're accepting this new development. Then 2 years later, you see our senior citizens on the news. We're being priced out. They rose my rent $200 and $300. Where are we going to go? The average senior citizen is only making anywhere from $600 to maybe $900 a month, and they cannot survive with anything outside of that. And that's, you want to have everything, including your heat bill, your light bill, your water bill, and it's like you cannot survive, especially when you thought that you're being sold a pipe dream. I'm just going to be real. You come in and you come in with your income. You're like, hey, I'm all set. I got a set income. I can afford my rent. Then all of a sudden, it just goes up and goes up until you're priced out. And then you're no longer welcome. And then it's like, where else are you going to go? So that's a major problem, not only in the city of Detroit, but I'm pretty sure in other communities. And I know, King, you're in DC, in the DC area. So I know you see it big time.
Yeah, it's crazy out there with all of this. So, another thing that I want to bring up was access to healthcare, and people with chronic health conditions, they have, especially where areas where they don't have good public transportation, and also individuals who suffer from untreated mental conditions. Is that, do you see that a lot where you are? How much is that a factor when it comes to homelessness, and also the benefits and everything that are available to these individuals?
Ooh-wee. I can honestly say there is a lack of, a lot of programs have been cut out. A lot of hospitals that are supposed to have those programmings for health care for those, especially with who are mentally ill, a lot of those facilities are probably 20 to 30 minutes outside the city. So again, say for instance you have a bus line. Well, here in Detroit the bus line is through the city, but we don't have a connecting bus lines into other cities that
Mhm.
people can have access to those healthcare systems that will be for them. So it's like when you are on a bus line and all of a sudden a city in between or two doesn't even have a bus line or a city public service system to run through there, how are you going to get there? Some people getting off the bus, they're riding their bikes, they have to Uber or Lyft. It's
Mhm.
costing them more money. Um, it's crazy, but yeah, we definitely have a lack of those resources, big time.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. They closed down the mental hospitals here. We had several mental hospitals. We had one on the east side, we had one on the west side, and one in the north side. And basically, they lost funding due to mental services. So they put people into regular populations without no kind of guideline. They opened up a couple of Wayne mental services that basically they take people in for appointments. But what happened to those people on the way to the appointment? What happened to those people leaving the appointment? What happened when those people don't have money to fill their medicine? There are a lot of programs here that when it's mental services, they do give you your medicine. But what about they don't give you that much on your health stuff? Because if you diabetic, you gotta say, oh, well, I get this free thing, or where I pay deductible on my mental, or should I pay a deductible on my insulin? And it's just like it's too much, And then let's talk about COVID-19. Soon as COVID-19 came out, my red flag was, oh my God, how is people going to deal with this mentally? And so at first, I was talking to people. They said, well, nobody is doing nothing mentally. But maybe 2 or 3 weeks right into that, we started getting a big old increase on domestic violence, on people having violence over their family, people losing their lives off ice, a glass of ice. Somebody got stabbed for a glass of ice and lost their life. And they wouldn't connect it to COVID-19. I said, if these people are asymptomatic, they still getting repercussions of it. And then you got us locked in the house for so many hours because we're trying to stay away from the virus. That's mentally tolling on somebody. And then think about people that don't have nowhere to go. They got to go sit on somebody's porch, or they got to sit and try to put a trash can on fire just to get heat. And then they dealing with mental things. And then what if they got COVID? So healthcare should be a human right, just like everything else. Housing, healthcare, just living a fair chance in life should be all a human right, and it should be dedicated to us, period. And it's just everybody, because here we definitely be in the Black and brown community, but we are seeing people of other races and colors that have low money. So we add them on. Hey, you're people of color, or even a couple of white people or whatever, Caucasian, they don't have money to make it work. And it's like they're wondering why they left behind also. But there you go with that money segregation, or that money that's, making an issue like they're talking about. But healthcare should be a human right.
And I want to talk about this because when you talk about mental health, especially in the African American community, it's always hush hush. We don't want to talk about it. That didn't happen. It's a lot of cover-ups to it. And it's like, no, we have to deal with it. It did happen. A lot of youth right now are struggling mentally, especially in the educational system. because they do not know how to cope. The coping skills are unreal. And so that's why you see people speaking about, suicide and doing these crazy challenges to get attention. They don't know how to cope, or they're giving up, so you have group homes. The group homes, the funding has been cut tremendously when it comes to the group home setting. And so it's an area that definitely has been ignored for too long, and it's getting worse.
Now, because T talked about the mental hospitals being losing funding, and Soummer, you're talking about the group homes losing funding. Aren't these state-run facilities in most cases? And if that's the case, why are they losing funding? And two, where is this money going to? Because it's kind of mind-blowing that you already have this issue with homelessness, the racial the financial segregation, and you always had mental illness contributed to that, and health issues contributed to that. Why is this still such a big problem? And it's like they don't know. They either don't know what to do with it, or act like they don't know what to do with it, or what is the problem? What is the disconnect with that?
So, in my opinion, for what I've seen, what they do is they slide stuff in on our ballots because people are not now knowledgeable about our ballots. So at one point they felt like, even though we had documents and everything, that mental services is a big part in everyone's family, at least 1 out of 10 family members have some kind of mental distress or issues due to poverty, due to crimes, due to things they've seen, watching people die, things like that. So they presented, this started back in the 80s to me, all the time, when the drugs came in. While the drugs were coming in, they were making decisions for us that's showing us right now that they made decisions during the drug era. Right. So with that being said, you talking about mental service, we didn't even talk about mental service on people that, drugs, or have, parents, babies born with addiction and things like that, and they don't have the proper medical to help them. So that was the first thing they done. They slided in on our ballots on what is and what is not good. And by us not reading or educating the community, that the community was like, oh yeah, we can save some money with this. And Lord behold, they saved money, but they closed all the hospitals down because it no longer had funding to pay employees or pay to stay for people that had mental services.
Right.
Second, it runs to the city council. And what they do is they that's why I'm talking about the CARES Act. That's why I started with the CARES Act, because if they can move and reallocate money, we lose those funds, right? And we lose them out the community, but yet and still these politicians can pay their bills that they have came up with. You know what I'm saying? Let's really talk about, we know politicians in the bed with people, you know what I'm saying? And they're not paying their debts, and they're using our tax dollar to pay their debts if they can. You know what I'm saying? Right. And we have to really educate, because people like, I don't care about voting. I only vote during the president time. No, you need to vote on millages. You need to vote on zoning. You need to vote on redistricting. You need to vote on who's in these schools, running these schools. You need to vote on everything we need. I mean, definitely, it's not just one thing to put a president in and out or put a mayor in and out. It's so many other policies and laws that we need to attack. And in order for us to attack it, we have to educate the communities.
Yes, I want to add on to real quick to what really is upsetting me, and my mother is a veteran. Our veterans are being ignored here, especially here in Michigan. We don't have a lot of military bases. We have one known as Selfridge Air Force Base, and that's probably about 20 to, it could be up to 45 minutes for some people outside the city. But we do have a VA hospital which is located in downtown Detroit. However, people, especially our veterans, are being denied care, the proper care that is suitable for them to get on their feet. It's like they're returning citizens, or they just don't treat them fair at all. And it's like T said, healthcare is a human right. And right now, our veterans nationwide need assistance like never before, and they're being denied those opportunities.
I mean, it sounds like to me, just going on in the conversation, when they say silent weapons or silent wars or private wars, this is exactly what, is going on in these situations. When we talk about lack of transportation just to get to, these healthcare facilities, when we talk about closing down hospitals, sliding in little things on the ballot boxes and things of that nature, this is what's going on, people. And people really got to wake up and see what's going on here. Silent weapons for silent wars.
Yes, indeed. Again, if you have a question for our guests, or if you want to add input this conversation, text your name to 347-778-1082, and we'll definitely bring you on the line so you can get your input and we can hear your voice on this topic. So another thing that we kind of skipped over was incarcerations, and it's mind-boggling, it's troubling, it's depressing. It's all those things that incarceration is still being held over people's heads, and it's preventing them from having a decent living or even finding a place to live. And then on top of that adds to homelessness. And to what you were saying, T, you don't count people who live with people or live in a car or doing all these other things. Is there going to be some point in time where that is no longer an issue, where incarceration is being held against a person?
Well, we're definitely fighting hard. We have an organization that's our cohorts called Michigan Liberations. And basically a friend of mine, he said, when you grow up and, you got to be the provider of your family because your mom handling the bills, but, you don't have clothes, or you don't have anything, you get in the street and do some things. Well, he got in the street. And then when he got in the street, he got in trouble. But when he got out, I'm going to call out Family Dollar. Family Dollar, hired him. Now, Family Dollar was okay with him. They said, oh, we accept people with records and things like that. But when they found out his charge was strong arm, that they decided not to let him go. And here he go. He has a child out here. He's not supposed to be selling no drugs, but yet still the only place that accepted him booted him out because of the nature of the charge. Even though he put it on his application, even though they knew when he came in, he was a good worker, but they made sure he got this store together for another manager to come in to run his store. They used him for what he knew and what his abilities were.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So right now we fight for people in incarceration. That's one of the reasons my dad too, he decided to be a co-founder of Street Outreach Court of Detroit and have it in the soup kitchen, because if you go down to 36th District Court, when you come in and you check in, you all of a sudden you wonder why it's police. All of a sudden the whole floor look like police stars circulating because you have a charge against you and they're about to lock you up. And that's how they bait you in. So what we started doing, we called out to lawyers, we called out to different judges, can you counsel these people so they'll have a backing? So if they got to show up to court, or better yet, let's put the court in the soup kitchen once a month, and we handle at least 25 to 30 cases. We helping people get their IDs, their birth certificates, and we also trying to help them be sustainable, because you have to try to find housing during the program. But that's when we realized that people still were streamlining on people being incarcerated on getting adequate housing.
I got a comment on my Facebook page from Teddy. He lives in Alaska. I met this gentleman on a plane last year. He says he can, as a prior felon, he can attest to the struggles of finding gainful employment and housing. He is a Caucasian guy, and this is a problem across the board. And it's crazy that I just, for me, I don't understand why, that is still an issue. And I wish more, people like you ladies were out there trying to, get these things in place so that, I can't say bring awareness. I guess it's get people in the right place so they can get rid of this issue.
I would say my background, I have a background in workforce development. And when you hear felon friendly or you see it, it's really not. It's they say felon friendly, and so people apply for it. And the first thing is like, what, you don't talk about, you don't necessarily put on your application why you have a felony. But if you're a sex offender, okay, we understand there are certain positions that you will not be able to have. Right. However, it's like you'll get in a position, or a felon may get in a position, and then if someone hears they're a felon, you have people that will go and research and dig up what that person was incarcerated for. And then they become a part of the water cooler conversation. The person could be the hardest working person in the place, and all of a sudden they can't get promoted. They can't get advances. They start getting harassed to the point either they quit, and if they quit, then they can't collect unemployment, or we're going to find a reason to get you fired. You know, this whole thing about felon friendly, it was a ploy to get a couple people in the door to say, hey, you know, some companies get funding to have they receive federal funding to say we're doing training for returning citizens. And then once they receive the funding, the oversight is no longer there. There's no checks and balances. And it's like, see, come in, you know, with the cameras, like camera action. And then once the cameras are off, once the funding is gone, and now it's no use for the person. Like T said, they used the individuals to get what they needed. They didn't set them up for any advancement. They can't do anything for their families, and they probably can never get another job in another place that they worked so hard to get into in the first place.
Right. Man, that's crazy.
That is why we need Black small businesses and Black things that don't streamline like that. Not trying to be funny, but also with Black small businesses, they need to understand etiquettes themselves too, because a lot of people don't support Black owned business because of their attitude or how they handle things. So I do launch our small business, and I asked them, I said, look, ask them to take healing classes, ask them to take classes so they can have customer service, because, you know, hands down, I'm going to go to a Black or brown store or things like that to get my items. But if you treat me wrong, I can't return, because at the end of the day, you're not going to treat me like anything and take my money. But I do support it. I still, I message all my small businesses and everything, but incarceration, you know, it kind of stop you from that if you got a felony on you to open up your business. So you have to figure out other ways to do it. It's always us Black people, or us Black and brown communities have to figure out a way to get around the system just for us to make it work. And our making it work is still putting us in poverty, because it may be one person in your family making a good income, but everybody else only making $12 or $13 an hour. And right now, the lowest rent right now is $900 in areas we know used to be $500 just a few years ago. And so it's really debacling to me. It's like, how can you just go up on rent like this with us without looking at what people make or what can they afford? And how are you just making people just massively homeless? And that's because they want to regentrification. They want gentrification. They want to sit and make changes to their better good, when they need to make it good for everyone, no matter who you are. It's a human right to get services, and it's a human right to be treated humane.
Yeah. So with that being said, let's talk about illegal evictions. What tactics, or I'll just leave it at that. What tactics are being used out there currently? Are there still same practices that have been going on all along, or have those tactics trended, you know, with the current times?
You want me to go first here? You want to go? Go. I'm gonna speak on it. I'm gonna say,
go ahead. You ready, Soummer? Go ahead.
This illegal eviction thing, you haven't seen nothing yet. You know, so right now, I'm just gonna put it out there because it's public news. We have an illegal eviction situation. If anyone's interested, it's on the GoFundMe page as well as Detroit Eviction Defense website. Google a young lady by the name of Whitney Burney, last name Burney. She was illegally evicted because the landlord / sex offender, landlord, slumlord, evicted her by making a call stating that she was a squatter. And she wasn't. And the Detroit police, there were some Detroit police officers from a certain precinct that assisted in that legal eviction. It did not go through the court process at all. And so right now we're under a CDC moratorium where, you know, it has been extended several times that you cannot be evicted. And so like T mentioned earlier, there are some people who have not paid rent in almost a year, and the landlords are upset, and they're trying to find ways. They're calling, cousins, aunts, uncles, throwing a security vest, throwing a fake police vest, doing scare tactics to go around the system to illegally evict tenants. And so I'm gonna let T speak about it a little bit more. Then I want to talk about tenants knowing their rights to that, to avoid illegal eviction.
Right. So not only that, we had to actually protest against our chief judge here at the 36th District Court, because he was still allowing his judges to evict people. They do emergency eviction, like if you do harm to a property, or you bring nuisance and noise. Those are two reasons that you can still get evicted regardless of the CDC order. But it's people getting evicted because the landlord, like, I can't afford my mortgage and you're there, and I'm about to lose my house because of COVID-19. Well, if they paid attention to the CARES Act would help them if they align with the tenant and they do the things they're supposed to do, and also make sure they don't throw the people out or mistreat them and things like that. They're trying to help the landlords as much as they're trying to help the tenants, because when you get all this money and they pay a couple of months ahead of your rent, soon as ahead of your rent, if your lease is coming up, people like, I don't want you to be here because you're not going to pay your rent. But how you know that's not going to happen to somebody else? Because even the big three was closed down during COVID here. Even all these big time jobs, don't get me wrong, we had essential workers, but most essential workers only make $12, $13 an hour and can't really afford their rent. It's families on top of families living in houses just to make ends meet. So illegal evictions have been crazy. So we made sure we did an action against the judge, which kind of shut them down a little bit. Unfortunately, we lost one of the judges that was eviction judge. She passed away a couple of weeks ago. And but we used to talk to her like, well, how can you be evicting people? Would you want somebody to evict your family if they're going through hard times and things like that? But they decided, they still was doing minor evictions and still doing cases. So they started holding cases over to another date. So new dates have been coming up, but with the CDC order in, they're not evicting them. But that has not stopped these landlords for doing illegal evictions. They have been going up to people when people leave their homes, they'll put their stuff outside. If you stay with somebody and say, Auntie Sue on the place, and she got mad at you because you ain't pay your money like you was to pay this week, she put you out without doing the proper going to court and evicting you. Also, it's a lot of big corporations that'll tell you, oh, we sold the whole building, so everybody got to leave. So that's illegal eviction also, because you have to give them a 30-day notice. Even if you sold, the next buyer should know that they have 30 days to relocate. So they're doing so many illegal evictions here. It's ridiculous. It stemmed before COVID-19. It's really worse since COVID-19.
And I want to speak to that too. We got land contracts, the people who, I spoke to a young lady, well, she's a senior citizen. She gave me a call. I literally spoke to her 2 days ago. In 2012, she put $3,000 down to move into her place. She expected to lease with the option to purchase. Within 2 years of being in that home, the owner sold it. She didn't know who they sold it to. And when they sold it over and over again. And here she is, she's still paying her money, money towards the purchase. And I think as of last week, I checked in with her, she paid $6,000. But dig this, someone came, it was two women that came to her place, changed the locks, and told her that they're the owners of the property. And wow. She was like, what? I mean, they just walked up like, hey, here's a notice to quit. You have 30 days to move out. Mind you, she's been in the home since 2012. So then she called the courts, and the courts was like, well, you got to make an appointment. There's nothing to do. She doesn't know the document is real or not. She's a senior citizen. All she knows is she's been trying to pay her money to purchase this home. She went through a couple of the organizations here in the city of Detroit. And now she's facing a possible illegal eviction. Well, come to find out, because of this stress, now she's in the hospital with a possible stroke or a heart attack, unconfirmed. But because of the stress and the fear of she's about to lose her home and be homeless. Because she does not know who the people are coming to her house and keep changing the locks and it's like, hey, you have your countdown, you need to move, you need to get out, we're the owners, but she's unable to verify it. And so now that she's down with an illness, they don't care about that. These are new owners. And the problem is now she's like, where has my money gone to? So illegal evictions, we have not seen nothing yet. There is not a plan. A lot of these cities are not prepared for the overload that's about to come after this moratorium lift. And I believe some cities have already started that rollout unofficially.
Wow. So with the conditions that, these people are facing with the, pretty much immediate evictions, like at what point or what recourse do they have, if any, to kind of, like, okay, so I'm here on the street right now. Is there anybody that can call as far as like checks and balances? I guess you can say, for lack of a better word.
We're fighting that in the community for sure. We did make sure they opened up warming centers for people. But like Soummer said, if it's a warming center that don't take the whole family, the dad got to be separated from the mom and the daughters and the son, and sons have to go with the fathers. And then what happens when you have a single mom or a single dad? How can you separate their children? But we have one of the biggest, our TCF building / old Cobo Hall is housing homeless people right now. Their church is housing homeless people, but they don't have any repercussions for it because there's not enough people fighting for it. It's people saying, okay, we're just going to take it and keep going. Well, you just become a number of, being a homeless person instead of you fighting for being housed. Because in the state legislature, they don't want to call people homeless. They want to call them the unhoused, but that's not true. We're homeless. If you're out in the street, you don't have nowhere to lay your head every day. You're homeless. You're couch hopping. You're homeless. You're doing whatever you can to get things together. And it starts off a lot of times with illegal evictions because we had subsidized apartments and subsidized housing, but when the big corps bought it, they didn't take on the Section 8. They didn't take on project-based vouchers. So right now, when we had thousands of places that can be for the low income, it's not here anymore, and they got it for the rich.
I'm also going to speak to that. So I live like 45 minutes from Toledo, Ohio, and I did I'm not going to say a test study, but I had an opportunity of taking someone I knew down to Toledo area. And they were able to apply for housing assistance, and within probably a month, they received everything they need that the city of Detroit did not provide them with. We literally have people starting to city hop or go to other areas because they're not receiving the necessary treatment and care in the cities in which they live in. And so they're moving to other cities outside, like 30 minutes outside of Detroit, or maybe even to another state to start over, because it's not all of the hoops and leaps and bounds that they need. They're trying to care for their family and stay protected and protect themselves.
Right. I just got a message saying that tenants need to know their rights in each state on eviction laws, and a tenant can sue the landlord for an unlawful eviction. Do you have a lot of tenants up there who know that they can sue the landlord? And also, do you have a lot of tenants up there who are suing landlords for illegal evictions?
Well, they're trying to start the process. They're trying to galvanize this. But right now, when you got more bad landlords than good landlords, it's like it's a losing battle right now. And what we're doing, we're forming committees in the communities, and we are doing training. I just had today, I had a series of storytelling because people have to tell their story about what's going on. But when you get in front of press or media, or if you get in front of city council or even state reps or state senates, even if you talk right before the president go on, federal wise, you have to be very disciplined, and you have to only talk 2 minutes and 30 seconds. How can you put a lifetime of stuff in 2 minutes and 30 seconds? Exactly. But you have to be most impactful. But people don't understand. You got to write in. You got to know who your political people are. People don't want to fight politicians. They feel like we got them in. They're supposed to do what we want. But how do they know what you want if you're not at the round table doing things? You know what I'm saying? But we know that you know your rights. We in an organization where it's full of lawyers, and basically they have been helping us through. But at the end of the day, it's so overwhelming. We get, like, on Fridays, I think we had a docket of almost 40 people being on the eviction list, and we knocked on their doors personally and gave them information like, we need you to go through this program, see if it's going to help you. But if people not getting their mail or getting their information, how are they going to know? And we need to educate people door to door, house to house, or however we need to get it done in the community.
And I can honestly say, T and I are like, when I say grassroots, we probably put on our boots and we be out here amongst the people, organizing and knocking on doors, because that's where it starts at. And we have one of the organizations with one of the lawyers a part of the organization. He did something about know your rights. And so before I speak about know your rights, a lot of times people get with landlords and they feel like they can just pay them money, and they don't follow the criteria. Like, they don't investigate the landlord. They don't go to see if they have a full a place of business. They're not reading the document. They don't know if it's notarized properly. They don't know the steps. They just say, hey, here, I'm here to pay my rent. We have a lot of people, unfortunately, now who are paying rent to maybe the maintenance man, and the owner has no idea that the maintenance man has been coming around there collecting rent. And here it is, the person is going to be homeless. The other problem that we're having with this illegal eviction, let's talk about single women, mothers with children being sexually harassed. Mm-hmm. They're basically saying, no cash or no ass, you got to give up something. And at the end of the day, they're harassing the women. They're coming in because they have keys to the homes, and they're like, it's going to be some type of sexual exploitation. Because if you can't pay your rent, I'm gonna take it out your ass. So now the woman feels uncomfortable. She feels threatened. And so when it comes to knowing your rights, it's important that you read your rental agreement thoroughly, through and through. You need to be mindful of the security deposit. You need to get receipts to everything. I mean, email receipts is amazing. People don't realize, like, if you take a picture of it, scan it, email it to yourself so you can have proof. Have proof of your lease, have a copy of it. Always understand that when subleasing, it pays to be selective. You need to, watch out for a lot. A notice on your door doesn't necessarily mean that you're being evicted. I want to touch on that, because a lot of people, when they see a notice on their door, they automatically assume, oh, I'm being evicted, I have to move out. Again, they're not going through the process. They're not going to court. They're not going to tell talk to the judge or the landlord and say, hey, I fell on a hard time. Can I give you partial payment now? And then I can give you another partial payment within 15 days. A lot of judges will work with you if you are in court, and they can put it on paper and it's documented. But that doesn't happen a lot of times. People automatically see that 30-day, I have to move, and then they just leave. And they don't want to fight, but you can. You have rights there. If you're not thinking about withholding your rent, have a plan. Here in Detroit, in some areas, we have a compliance law. Whether or not it's being enforced, it needs to be. A lot of lawmakers put it in place, but it's not being honored and followed. And so that's a situation. Landlords are not permitted to forcibly remove tenants. We're speaking about illegal evictions. Again, they'll change the locks. They'll try to put your things out. They'll come in with threats, come in with people who you don't know. And then take advantage of, forming a tenants union, meaning if you have a group of people in your neighborhood that you can get together, don't be afraid to reach out and organize and get assistance. A lot of times people are afraid to do that because they fear retaliation if they speak up. But that's not the case. You need to understand your rights. I am also a member of the National Legal Aid Defender. I also received a national award in 2019 for community work in regards to housing and justice. And so it's very important that to find, there are some lawyers that would do pro bono work when it comes to tenants and landlord-tenant laws.
So
Yeah.
with that being said, just as a follow-up, so who do you contact, or how do people contact anyone when they see something shady is going on? Like, is there any organization right offhand that you can maybe throw out there, in your areas that can, at least guide these people when they see something like this don't look right. This don't, as my mom would say, this some in the milk ain't clean.
So across all the states, across the United States, we're supposed to have the NAACP, but most chapters are inactive. That's the first thing. Or contact your civil rights if you have legal civil rights. But in Detroit, we do have a couple of grassroots organizations that's knocking doors. So we're talking about Detroit Action, Detroit Eviction Defense. We're talking about for incarceration. We're talking about Michigan Liberation. They're going from the top of Michigan to the bottom. Just getting your story out. Sometimes you may just have to tell your story on Facebook and call out, is there any city help? Because they don't advertise that they can help you. And politicians not going to take on one person. They're going to want to take on a group of people. There's no such thing as I and team. And there's many people dealing with the same issues. It's just what happens in our house stays in our house. So we never know what's going on. So they need to have community meetings so people can express what's going on with them or what resources we have in our back door. Also, when you look at the news and you hear about resources, make sure you're doing a follow-up and calling those places. It kills me that they talk about death for 5 to 10 minutes, but when they give you a resource, they only tell you a resource for 27 seconds. And then, but it's several things you need to try to do. If grandmother is going through something and she's a senior citizen, make sure you get more senior citizens involved and hear their story to make sure what they're going through, that they can get assistance and help. And then you have to look out for organizations, legal help, and then your politicians that's in your area.
It's interesting that you mentioned the situation where maintenance men are collecting rent and saying either you give me some ass or I'm gonna get you up out of here, and landlords don't know about that. That happened in Baltimore a few years ago, and that's a story that made the news. So the news is also a good resource that you can reach out to. I know a lot of people don't like the news for whatever reason, but when it comes to stuff like that, the more public you make it, the more attention you put on that, the more light is shined, and that it kind of forces people in certain positions to make moves on that. So definitely encourage people to jump out there and let it be known. Don't suffer in silence. With anything, mental health, the poverty, the red line, and the issues with incarceration. Don't suffer in silence. Put it out there. Let it be known. Build these grassroots communities in in your neighborhoods and stuff like that.
I want to T is awesome and mentioning that, and as well as using the media, getting various groups together, because there's strength in numbers. And when you have a large amount of people who come together and to speak out, or people hear your story, they're like, oh my gosh, your story enlightened me or encouraged me to come forward. I was afraid to speak about it. It happened to me. The Me Too movement, you know how big that got? Because someone was bold enough to speak out, and then it caught fire, catch fire, like me too. It happened to me too. And then you get all those people together, and all of a sudden movement happens, laws change, things start to happen. So when you are facing legal eviction, or you see and you start talking about it, you never know who can assist you, who can put a stop to many things. Senior citizens, those with disabilities. I want to speak about legal evictions and foreclosures to those who have houses who are falling apart. Landlords don't feel like they need to take care of their business, especially when the home is going into foreclosure, or better yet, the home is falling apart, like the roof and the going back to Texas, a lot of people renting down there. The water pipes are busting. A lot of things are going on, but people need to speak up and put a time limit on it. deadline people, because people will make you wait forever. They'll make you wait 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. In the meantime, their life is going on. You voted voted a lot of these politicians in office, then it's time for you to hold them accountable.
So Katrina says people need to know that a legal eviction cannot occur until the process is going through the courts and the judge has signed off on the eviction. Yes, a notice doesn't mean that you are getting evicted. The process can take as long as 6 months. Also, if you have caught up on your payments by the court date, they cannot evict you in some cases.
I mean, the thing about it
is
is
so true.
Just talking about, people not speaking up. I mean, you got to look at it like this, people. If you going through a situation like this and you don't say anything, you're going to get evicted. If you say something, again, whether it be fear or whatever the case may be that's holding you back, at least you put it out there that, hey, this is going on. And like Ms. Soummer was saying about the Me Too movement, the more people you can get, surrounding you in those circumstances that are going through the same thing, there's power in numbers, people. And we know that, through history has taught us that, divided we stand, united,
divided we
fall. Thank you.
United we stand,
we stand, divided we fall. But again, if people don't know what you're going through, then no one can stand up and help you. So again, just going back to that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say I have a situation going on right now with some housing injustice in my community. I think King had the pleasure of saying that it took a lot out of me to speak about it, because I didn't realize the emotion that was gonna come up when I was speaking about it. My voice was shaking, and through that, T is willing to help many of our residents in our community to get organized to where they can start to share their story and what it looks like. Some people are great vocally at speaking out, but what T encouraged me to do, she said, sit down and write it out. And I was pushing and saying, I had a full-fledged meltdown on her, like, I can't do it. I'm not doing this. But she encouraged me to, she gave me a sample of how to start my story off. And after that, I was able to flow. And then I took a 24 hours. I looked at it, okay, I need to add to it a little bit more. I became comfortable. And like she said, she's like, just imagine if you had 2 minutes and 37 seconds, or maybe 2 minutes to speak in front of a group, focus on your delivery, make sure that you're heard. We have a lot of people come with so much and they're yelling and they're, pointing fingers and not having solutions. And at the end of the day, they're not being heard, because a lot of times politicians that you go up against, they don't have to answer you. But if you get it to the point where they're listening and go into their meetings that are recorded or mandated, trust me, they'll hear you loud and clear then.
Yeah, that's
and they also hear numbers. I'm sorry. And they also hear numbers. I'm sorry. And what I told Soummer, I said, hey, what hurt you? Who hurt you? Why did they hurt you? And what is your goals for healing? And that makes a lot of sense with people, because I'm emotional wreck if I've lost everything. If I don't have nothing but what I have on my back right now, I got so many issues, I'm gonna do a meltdown. And basically, we just got to tell people, once you know your rights, you can exercise what is going on, why it's going on, call people out and make people accountable, especially these politicians and these big corps that's getting over on people just because they want to gentrify our areas.
Yeah, and I was going to say along lines with what you both were saying, it's not enough to complain about what's going on. You need to be able to, come up with solutions. You need to be able to articulate it well. You can't go in there just pointing fingers, yelling, because, they will tune you out real quick. But what they, and we know the news like to publicize, drama, but you cannot tune out a person who is articulating and engaging you in a manner where you cannot ignore them. And when you do ignore them, it's going to look bad on you for ignoring that person, because this person is asking you a direct question. They're presenting certain things to you. They're not, they're questions where you have to really answer. And if you can't answer, it comes back on you to like, oh, wow, this person came to you and they presented this issue. They presented these solutions. They presented, all of this information to you, and all you could do is walk away. So people need to understand that, hey, there is strength in numbers, but your voice can be heard, even, silently. I mean, a solo.
Yeah, but when you do stuff solo, which it still will be heard, but make sure you know the proper people you need to contact. You gotta say city council, you gotta say the mayor, you gotta say your state rep, your state senate. And then you need to find out who your congressperson is that's up under your district, because you got to put power into the people you voted in for them to move your story. But don't let them walk away, because at the end of the day, I will call you out. I don't care. Like right here, we're going to call you out. Don't play with me. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to make sure that, and then that give us a say, like, are you going to do another term, or are we going to boot you out, put some people, and also develop members in your neighborhood to become the leaders that you need in these positions. Jesus. Okay. We watch people come in our city and they're just slide into a position because they lived here for 6 months. No, you don't know nothing about Detroit. So how can you run something? But that's what the big corps do. They set people in to be the mold so they can mess up our area. So it's a must. And knowing your rights and knowing what protections and what visits you can have for yourself and your community, because I know yourself is a big thing, but there's no family that only got yourself in it. A family is a whole bunch of people. So even if it was just your family or it was just your neighborhood, we still family, and we need to come to community and take care of things together in a positive manner.
Yeah.
And
I am big on shooting an email to my rep, my congressperson, or whatever the case may be, even the governor. I'm telling you, if you reach out to these people, if you tailor your message correctly, or whatever the case may be, you will get a response. Trust and believe. So don't think that being silent is gonna help or anything like that. Know your rights, know how to protect yourself, reach out to these people who are in these positions. Do it enough. If you send that email to them, you have a receipt that you reached out. You can take this to the media. You can take this to, your community organizers or whatever the case may be. Just don't stay silent on these issues, because, this housing injustice is ridiculous.
I was going to say too, to that, don't be the person who just show up when you have a problem.
Right.
You come in, you sit in the entire meeting the whole entire time, and all of a sudden you come in there, I got a problem with my roof, and you like, wait a minute. You never been to a community meeting, don't know who your leaders are, but you need to really get involved a little bit more than what some people do. They don't watch the news. They don't know what's going on, but they have their heads down all the time on the cell phone. They looking at the cell phone and getting TikTok University, getting Facebook University, and they really don't know what's going on. But better yet, and still, I want to say this. We have a lot of politicians coast to coast, and especially I'm going to speak about the city of Detroit, because a lot of times there are things that are put on the agenda, and then they put the public comment at the end. But the city council meeting, this is city council meetings, and this is across the board. Mm-hmm. There are times that residents have something to say in between. They don't want to wait an hour and a half, 2 hours before they can speak, because by that time, they feel like they're forgotten about. And then there's a lot of times people on the council don't want to respond. These politicians don't feel like they need to respond. They start hiding behind things. Well, there's a situation I kind of spoke about recently in my Facebook post that was addressed and brought to our city council's attention in 2012, and it was ignored. And now it's 2021, and it has gotten worse. They have allowed a root of a systematic issue that was unaddressed when it was brought forth to them, to now become a raging fire. And so it's like, it's people like myself and T who have to really organize in this short amount of time in the election season to say, hey, there is an issue here that you keep ignoring, you know, and we've been through 4 different mayors, and this is gotten worse. And every time a mayor comes in, he takes his administration with him, everything changes and things get swept up under the rug, but the issue remains. So we encourage people to really tell the story and get to know their council people, legal teams, legislators, everything that's on the ballot.
Yes,
So
definitely.
it sounds like the thing that they're doing is just taking the can and kicking it down the road a little bit every time. So with that being said, though, before these people even get into these type of situations, is there any way they can protect themselves? Again, as far as like looking or searching out for certain resources to make sure that I'm not giving my money to the dang landlord here. I mean the maintenance guy. Thank you. Or someone who's claiming to be, you know, the owner here, or the person, you know, who's subleasing. Like, what resources do they have to protect themselves before they even get into these situations?
Do their research. Do the research, because we have a slumlord. I'll call him a serial type of slumlord. Basically, what he does is his business is operating under one name, but his management company is under another name, or his business, you know, when it goes to you're paying at a different address under another name. And so you don't know who you're giving your money to. That's a big issue. You know, it's not, nothing is matching up, nothing is lining up. That's a red flag. If you cannot go into a business and verify and look them up and do some background research, if they don't have a working website, if they come to you with a notarized document with ink smeared, you know, things that you can't verify, those are red flags. And if you have that intuition, trust, but you need to verify. You need to verify. And as soon as you see it, you got to report it.
Well, I figure it's organizing your community, re-establishing block clubs, so the block clubs will know who own properties, who don't own properties. Knock on these neighbor doors. Hey, I wanted to rent this place over here. You know who own it? There's a lot of time they're going to say no, they don't, because the previous owner moved out for whatever reason. But at least establish a relationship with people in the neighborhood, so you know. Like she said, look up the Better Business Bureau. Go down to 36th District Court or any courts in your area to see if this is a registered landlord. You know, it's weird. I have a story to go with it. You know, one Sunday about 1 o'clock, me and another lady, we went and knocked on this lady's door, and I said, hey, you on the eviction list? Have you got any paperwork? She said, well, yeah, I got an eviction list, but my new landlord gave me this new lease. And I was like, do you mind taking a picture of your lease? Because I need to send this to our law department to make sure it's true, because why would you get an eviction when someone has purchased a property? Evidently, something is illegal, either the person evicting you illegal or the new tenant. Well, landlord. So when our legal team tried to contact the new landlords, they were like, oh, no, this is not us, blah, blah, blah. But it's the phone number you answered, you know, your lease had your name on it or however. And they staked that house out for 3 Saturdays in a row before they told them they had a lease for them. So with that being said, you know, she had been there through the first landlord, so-called, quote unquote, and then she was there when the change just happened. You know, what's the difference is her mom used to live with them, and now her mom don't. But she was on the first lease. But when we look and we investigate the property, no one has registered this property since 2015. So now we got to figure out, well, who's paying the taxes, because the taxes were up to date, but there was no legal names on it. And then we need to find out the people that's on the names, where are they? I mean, that's on the last time they registered the property, are they still alive? Where are they at? What happened? And why is this being rented out and not under your name? So it's so many things out here that you just got to watch for and red flag, but it's knowing your area, your community, because back when I was growing up, I mean, my grandparents, we had community meetings every week. You know what I'm saying? We had community get-togethers where we bartered. If you bought a whole box of onions and I got potatoes, we're going to swap out some and we're going to share it in the neighborhood. And they're not doing that no more because, you know, again, I have to hate to say it, the drug era messed us up where we had confidence and trust in our community, but they did that in a perpetual way, so we couldn't stand strong together. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. You know, I was never in an area where community meetings was a thing, but I have watched enough, you know, movies, TV shows, documentaries, and everything else to where community meetings were important because it kept everybody in the community informed. It had that whole that village mentality going, and you know, moving on with the times and drugs and crime and all of this, that kind of made people separate from each other, allowing certain poisonous things to infiltrate the community and further divide the community. So another, you know, that is important to have community meetings. It is important to know thy neighbor. You know, those things are important in order for, you know, for us particularly, but for everybody to, you know, try to combat the injustice in housing.
I want to speak to that community meeting piece. I believe that right now, a lot of politicians are, ever since March of 2019, have had the opportunity to hide and not continue to inform their communities of what's going on. And so the community meetings have stopped or they're delayed and the information is not being disseminated. There's no way that people can find out what is going on in their communities, and then by the time everything you know how to say outside opens up, because here in Michigan we're still on lockdown a little bit compared to other cities, but in the sense of that, people are not really sure what's going on, and before they know it, all these new housing developments are going to start happening. All of these the votes and people are making moves without you knowing. It's like you're coming in like, well, the last time we discussed, they're like, oh, we're past that now. We just went ahead and it's happening. It's in motion. And the community is like, what? We don't have a say so? Well, we spoke on your behalf.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, that's what's happening. You know, it's like even with this housing injustice, there are a lot of things that were on the ballot, or a lot of things that people need to discuss or they've shared with their community leaders. And unfortunately, nothing is moving or nothing is taking place, or time has allowed to other people to switch positions to where once outside opens up, you go to find out that the person who you're working with is no longer there. So now you have to start the process all over again. And now you get frustrated and discouraged. And guess what? They win.
That sounds like changing your doctor again. You know what I'm saying? But I just wanted to say a little bit more on it, that, you know, with community and trying to get these politicians, people got to keep putting in their head, you put these people in office, you pay their salary with your tax money. I don't care if you don't pay taxes, but if you go to the store and you pay taxes on your items, you're paying their salary. Yeah. So you have to get to round tables. It's people, I mean, literally, we knock on doors day in and day out. I mean, literally during the pandemic, I was leaving information and then running down to the sidewalk like, hey, you're getting evicted. I need you to contact this number. So, and also our mail system jacked up during the, Donald Trump hookup and changing the administration for the post office. You know, he knew exactly what he was doing because they passed a proposal here. It was called Proposal N. And basically they told them, we're not going to go up on your taxes. We're going to put schools back in your area. We don't have no schools in our area because we don't have houses in our areas. You know what I'm saying? These houses has been overassessed with taxes, and people lost their houses. We don't have Black community like we used to. And we definitely don't have schools like we did. Every neighborhood had schools. Every district had a high school, elementary, and a middle school. And now you're lucky if we got maybe 20 schools across the whole Detroit that's public. You know what I'm saying? And then they let big corporation buy our education instead of us having legislatures in place or people at a round table that can tell you what our neighborhoods need. You know what I'm saying? And then this new school system, this new math, this new things, like you want me to help my kid, and I don't even know what this math problem is. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. And I went all the way to calculus. So, you know, when I seen the math, I was like, whoa. And I had to really start looking at videos to see what's going on. Can you imagine a parent that just worked at the plant and didn't do as much as we done, and all they know is X, Y, and Z. So, you know, how you gonna change systems here to make a systematic change and try to just put us in poverty no matter what? Because if our kids are not educated right, how can they go to the next system, or how can they get a job where they can successfully move up, but they don't even know how to read well, or they don't know how to comprehend well, because they're changing systems all the time. And yes, you do need to fax people. You do need to email people. You do need to make sure we're calling these representatives and stuff and making a lot of noise, because it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to groom the politician to do what we need in our communities.
Exactly. So let's switch on to legacy building as it pertains to housing injustice, because, you know, my oldest son, he's 27 right now, and I've spoken to him about, you know, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, because in my mind, and you know, if I'm naive to this, please unnaive me, you know, but if you own your home, or you have a home to pass down to your children or grandchildren, whatever the case may be, that kind of limits this whole problem. If you know, if you're educated, you pass it down, you keep it in the family, and you know everything that you need to do, it kind of limits the injustice of, well, I can't get a house because of this, or I can't rent because of that. So can y'all speak to that?
I want to talk. Okay, so we're talking about legacy building, and I'm sorry, I fell off. I hit the button, and that was it.
No problem.
But all right, so let's think about down south, okay, or even up here. You got Big Daddy and Madeira, and so they say Big Daddy will go out and, you know, work hard and, you know, have this house. He built this house with his bare hands. However, at some point, the importance of the maintaining and upkeeping of the home was not properly discussed. And so because that wasn't properly discussed, you know, people get to the point when it comes to legacy building, they are losing their homes and they don't know what to do because they're uneducated. I'm in a situation right now where I recently became a homeowner, and unfortunately I thought I was a homeowner until I found out the city of Detroit put a silent mortgage on my home, and I'm showing my children about this legacy situation, about, hey, you know, we finally did it, you know, this is what it looks like, and now I feel like I'm back in the ring fighting again. And so I know it's going to be rectified, but when there's legacy building, you do have trials and tribulations, but you also need to understand, educate yourself about the property taxes. What happens if, you know, you have miscellaneous events like a furnace goes out and, you know, bills need to still carry on. You know, when you have a legacy there, you need to be able to transfer the information and to share it with your children. Do not keep a hush hush. You know, understand about the deed and how not to get things caught up in probate, so that when someone does pass away, you know, you need to be able to have a legacy and a roof over your head to protect your family so that you can sustain and move on.
Yeah, that's one of the keep your paper in order.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, legacy start with birth, you know, not trying to be funny. Like she said, Big Mama or, you know, Big Daddy, they got us property, and they got a couple other properties so we can make sure our family was housed. And then they made sure they like made racism among our neighborhoods on, oh, she better than you, or things like that, where they didn't get to learn about what it is or what it takes to have a home. So, you know, and I spoke on that I'm a mother of 5. I adopted, you know, my kids. I got a 33-year-old that's adopted, a 29-year-old that was adopted. My son is 27. And then I got a 24-year-old and a 16-year-old. And basically, the 16-year-old, he was able to go back to his mom when she got her life together. But I started with them with simple things like, hey, you know, when he was 2 years old, I was like, hey, you got to go to everybody's room and you got to match their shoes because you got to know which one is left and right. And when he did everybody's shoes, you know, he got a weekly allowance. But say if he threw a temper tantrum during the week and he couldn't do the shoes, I used to tell him, now, you know, you got to be deducted Wednesday because you didn't show up to work. You got to start showing your kids what legacy mean and what we got to do in the community to keep your stuff. Now, in our situation in Detroit, and it's in a lot of urban cities to gentrify, they overassess taxes. Here, they overassess our taxes by $600 million. How can a city pay back $600 million that you overassessed our taxes, and all those mom and pops, big mama, granddaddies, all those homes are lost, and our streets look so horrible and dilapidated to it's ridiculous. Like literally, it's some streets over here that may got 1 or 2 houses on it, and they still have people in it because they bought their houses and they want to keep their houses and their family and their generational wealth. But if you have nothing around you, what is the wealth of the house? The house is now only worth, you may have paid $50,000 for this house, but it's only worth like $8,000 now because of the community and what's going on in the community. And there's no school to back up the taxes and things like that. But people have to start with the root of things. I don't care if you just do it with, you know, with your kids, with, hey, you know, you like to go shopping every 2 weeks to get you a goodie bag. Well, these are the chores you have to do. And with the chores, you have to tell them, hey, we have bills to pay. And sometimes things not going to work out the same, or we might have to hold your check over because our check didn't come on time. You know what I'm saying? Real life stuff should be instituted into our children. I know they only got 18 years to be a kid, but have you noticed when these kids get to 18 years old, they do not know how to take care of themselves because we didn't show them. And most of these parents like, I don't get no more money for you. You got to go. And it's messed up because mentally they're raping us from our generational wealth, legacy, and more over us not teaching and teaching our children like we're supposed to. The school's supposed to do it, but they took all that out. When I went to school, we had school banking in the school. We had where you can go to the bookstore and buy your supplies if you earned your money. You know, it was so many things that just was put in place that they just don't have for kids no more. They don't even know even exercise because they don't go out to play and stuff. So it's all crazy. So the thing about it again, legacy wealth got to start from birth, and they got to start in the communities, and we got to let them know. Dues need to be put in so we can help each other. Rent parties got to happen so we can make sure people don't get evicted. But we don't do that no more because what happens in my house stays in my house, and that has oppressed people to be in poverty, plain and simple.
Right.
I
So
mean, my thing on that is not to cut you off, King, but
right.
we in our community, for some reason, we have this idea that once my son or my daughter gets to a certain age, you're out of here. And I think that's the biggest thing you could ever do to your own seed is kick them out of your house. True enough, you know, they have reached the age where they should be able to fend for themselves. But the thing about it is you're actually killing your own legacy. So instead of kicking your kids out, how about just have them to kick in on a rent or pay a bill? You know, if you like watching cable, pay the cable bill. Give them some type of responsibility. But at the same time, making sure that they're being responsible with the money that they are earning, meaning make sure that they have, you know, these bank accounts open or home banking systems where you see them putting their money back. So determining, you know, what age they are all right or okay to you know, leave the home, that's up to you and them. But the thing about it is, do not kick your kids out. If anything, that's when you know, they've reached that age where we can start working as a team instead of, okay, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, you know, I'll do all this for you and handle the major bills. But then you're letting your kid just, you know, get by in life, meaning playing them video games or running the streets or wherever the case may be. You have to be responsible with these kids and not kick them out when they reach a certain age, because I have known families that have a family compound where they have, you know, uncles, aunties, cousins, sisters, brothers, whatever the case may be. They all have their own separate, you know, living quarters or living space. And some families, they have their own land where, you know, maybe the uncle lives on the back of the land and Auntie, she lives at the front of the land. But the thing that I'm saying here is, if you pool your resources, you will be amazed about how much you can actually get done.
Yeah, that's that group economics family team effect. So Corey says that big car industry deficit hurt Detroit. Now, with that being said, how much did that impact that whole housing injustice thing? Because yeah, a lot of us who are not from Detroit are not very familiar with Detroit. Yeah, we know the big three. We know y'all got the Detroit Lions. We know y'all got the Detroit Pistons. But how did that deficit really affect the injustices in housing?
Oh, well, let's see. Probably back in the 80s for sure. I know that a lot of homes used to have like the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so when those jobs started leaving or those plants started closing, there were no one, people left the city. Basically, when the jobs left, people left. And so it left big gaps and holes in our city. The jobs didn't come back. But the jobs that are back, they're paying a lower wage.
Mm.
And so people can't, it's like the cost of living is not matching the demand for housing,
Mm-hmm.
or if you have it at all. And so people then, like my father-in-law before he passed, for instance, he retired making a certain wage, whereas now people are grandfathered in, and they can now afford a little bit when they retire or can sustain the rent in their houses. But my father-in-law, if he was still living, he will be struggling because of his pension would not match the housing demand or the cost of the housing prices of today. So a lot of, I can honestly say, a lot of the auto industry, once a lot of those plants closed, it really sucked the life out of our community. But in the same sense, no one got together to try to revitalize it either, because now these corporations are coming in, and we got a lot of capitalism going on, and it's a hot mess. So Go ahead, T.
So to piggyback on Soummer, the car industry was just a horrifying issue to happen in Detroit. Like she said, it was houses and I said earlier, it's houses where one person worked for, you may have three people in your family work for Chrysler, Ford, and Dodge or Chevy, right? So you got those three people making money, but the rest of the family is not making good money. So when stuff happened back when Obama was in office, it was so traumatic, but he actually bailed the big three out. He actually bailed out big corporations. But you know what? He forgot to bail the community out, because the community suffered bad during that time. And it was a trickle effect. Not only did the car industry mess things up, but then it messed up our school, because if you all moved out the neighborhood, there's no one paying taxes to attend to our schools. There's no one properly doing what they need to do. And then you had the nerve to give big corps, movies, movie producers and more a tax break to come here to tear up our city even more. And they may put it back how it looked, but hell, it was in shambles already. So like, what did you really put back? What you put that tree back that you blew up, but it's horrible now, So it was so much. And not to mention, I'm gonna keep saying this, City Council allowed them to oversex our taxes by $600 million. I still cannot figure out a way how they're gonna fix this, how they're gonna bring people back to Detroit that belong here. And right now we're having a housing problem for people to take Section 8 vouchers and project-based vouchers, because they again let big corps come in here without stipulation. And then when they let the big corps come in with stipulation, you have to rent out 10% of your apartments to low-income people, right? And then they got the nerve to bring in people that actually can design the place where they counted a hallway as 10% when no one is renting a hallway. You know what I'm saying? Wow. They changed up. Man, when I tell you so much stuff up here in Detroit that's happening, and at the end of the day, Michigan is a state where we lead what's going on. So if all this chaos is in Michigan, I can't even imagine what's going on in other cities. You know what I'm saying? But the craziest thing is that other cities, when it comes to the Black and brown community, they're sticking together a little bit more, and they're doing things a little bit more. In Detroit, it's just, hey, it's for me and my family, and that's it. But no, it's you, your family, and your community, because if your child cannot walk up the street without getting harmed, killed, or anything else, it's still a problem. And then how are we going to build legacy up after this downfall? Truly.
Right.
I want to, real quick, T mentioned the schools. In my community that I'm in, we have one high school at correction. It's a K through 12, pre-K through 12. So all of the high schools, all of the schools pretty much are underperforming, and they're not within walking distance like they once were. A lot of people are sending their kids to schools outside of the city if they can for a better education. Because what's the sense of you working outside of the city, your job's not in the city, so now you want to try to get to work, drop your child off. But unfortunately, when I was growing up, when I was a young buck, we had schools that we can walk to within a 7-8 block radius. Now, you don't have that. You literally have schools that are overcrowded, underperforming. The resources are not there. The legacy, building and talks are not being held. It's more so focused on discipline, getting this child, because they're disruptive, out of my classroom. And it's a social economic issue that's happening over. It's a cycle, repeated cycle. So kids are not even being educated correctly.
Again, if you want to contribute to this conversation, text your name to 347-778-1082, and we'll bring you on the line. Also, if you have a question for our guest. One of the things that I want to ask you ladies is, with the situation with the big three corporation out there, and they pay so little in taxes, do you think if they paid more in taxes that individuals would pay less in housing taxes? And do you think that would overall help the communities in Detroit or, all over the country?
Yes, actually, our education department is trying to launch a graduated tax system to the wealthy. They from day one, January 1, everyone pay a baseline taxes, which, that's what we should work on. But soon as a millionaire or a billionaire hits 75,000, they get put in a different tax bracket, but still pay the same amount of money. The only time we try to ask for increases when you get to $100,000, we ask you to pay 2% more than what you were paying, on the taxes. And then if you make it to $250,000, we want you to go up another 2%, which is 4% over the average person that make low income. And the low income, we're trying to give them at least a 1 to 2% discount, because they're spending, most taxes are higher in your neighborhood. Like they price gouge you to make the difference in the taxes. So no matter what, you're going to pay high taxes. But if we successfully move this graduated taxes back in order, it's going to help fund our kids. It's going to help fund our neighborhoods. It will help fund tons of things. But most people in the Black community, I don't think I'm ever going to make $250, so I ain't got to vote on this. Well, you not necessarily, because, in life, you got to put yourself out there. You got to see what credentials you got. I haven't got up to $250,000, but hey, I got over 100,000 before, in my lifetime. So I can't say I never was in a good class or I made good money. So I wouldn't mind paying the extra 2%. You know what I'm saying? But right now they're getting tax braced like crazy. Like you don't have to pay taxes period this quarter or the whole year. And you made $9 million with no taxes coming back in our city. Come on now. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
Please.
Well, then where they're always robbing the damn communities of their resources, but not putting anything back in. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. Got a caller to bring on the line.
Hello.
What's going on? Say your name, your city. What's up? What you got for us?
What up, man? It's your boy Corey Jenkins. I'm out here in Houston, Texas, man. You know who I am. King, Summer, T, in the eye. What's going on?
What's up, man?
Not much.
Hey, Corey.
I want to chime in real quick. I'm getting a delay. I'm actually probably a little bit behind y'all, but I did want to chime in on some of those topics that you guys were talking about. And one of those topics was building a compound. I saw it firsthand when I used to live in Detroit. I was living in Detroit probably about 7 years ago. And riding down, there's a major highway, I-94. Those ladies are pretty familiar with it. I used to ride down that highway every day, and you would see the houses. You would see one very, very nice house, and you'd see like 3 or 4 different houses that are boarded up, ready for destruction, and they were going for very, very, very little money. And not that this is a racist thing, but I saw a Mexican couple that I knew, and they had a lot of family there. They bought the house. They fixed the house up. After they fixed the house up, they bought the house next to it, and all the family would stay there. It just so happens that they were construction workers, but they did everything that they could do to keep their money within their family, and they ended up buying 2 or 3 houses for the families in a short 3 to 5 mile radius. So it is very doable. It's a cultural thing, and us as Black people, I don't know what our thing is as far as trying to, mend together and do something like that. But this is something that was just talked about with me and my cousin. And the other topic was firsthand understanding that the jobs that were lost in Detroit, people don't understand the ramifications behind it. It was so many jobs. And people have to understand when they talk about Detroit and the car industry in Detroit is the car industry of the world. Not just the United States, of the world. Like every car that is made has they have to come through Detroit to get something made if they're not getting all the way made there. There's factories around the world, but there's a reason why there's a major car show every January in Detroit. So when people understand that, and then you understand that, my dad worked at the factory, his dad worked at the factory, and his dad's dad worked at the factory, and that kind of money was being made, and that kind of educational level was being done, and then you take all that away to give them nothing. It's crazy. So I just wanted to chime in. I was listening, and I'm enjoying the whole podcast. So thanks.
Man, we sure appreciate you calling in and chiming in, man.
Yes, thank you, fellow Detroiter. Yo.
All right. Yeah,
but yeah, that is true. The sad thing about Black people, let's be real as real can be. It was shown to us how racism was built among us as Black people. They started with the man-made Bible or whatnot, and they made you feel like, you had to be a slave or you had to be poor to make it through. And that's not true, because it's people that has made it out of these situations. I was just talking about this. So I stayed across the street from my friend named Jamie, and he was of the Japanese descent. And our family was across the street. Now, we had just as many people. No, we didn't. That's telling the story. We had just as many adults in their house. They had 5 adults. We had 5 adults in our family. Mm-hmm. But we only had 5 kids in the household with us. They had every adult had 3 children or more. So what they did was the adults got main rooms, and all the kids was in the basement with their beds lined up, look pretty much like a concentration camp or some kind of, I don't know. But anyway,
like military back in the day.
What they done was, and what Jamie explained to us, every family in there, all 5 adults had to pay a certain amount of money. And that certain amount of money was going to ensure them helping them get a house and a car. And they had 5-year increments. So whatever they were paying every 5 years, they bought another house and another car for one of the families. That family left out, but they brought another family in. So it was always rotating until they successfully put their family in homes. Well, in us across the street, my granddad was working, my auntie was working, a couple other people was working, but I had this one cousin, didn't have children, but he stayed with us. And yeah, he paid his amount, but he always showboated, and whatever he made extra, he looked like he was a little dope man, because what he was paying was nothing compared to what he would pay living on his own. So that made people in our household upset, because how do he get a chance to get this extra stuff or rent a car every week or do whatever? But that's not your business. Your business is for him to pay the amount that we got put in. Whatever he do with his extra money, that's his business. But come 5 years and he's not ready to flock out, I feel like it should be a penalty on that. If you still got to stay, then you got to pay more because you chose to jack up what you were doing, not fight. Oh, we ain't gonna stay in this household. You know, we're not gonna forget it. We just gonna drop the whole program. It was crazy because at one point, my family, we was able to give people, you was going off to college, we gave you a $2,000 stipend for yourself because we knew when you first went to college, it was going to be hard for you to find a job. But that's because we were paying dues in our family. We were doing things that was business-like, but it was all for family and even close friends. We started doing it for close friends. But then here we go. We had those people, Mr. Know-it-alls, Miss Know-it-alls, that tore up the whole system that we were doing. And we did it for over 12 years, but year 13, we got tired.
You know, that's important because, you know, as Corey was saying, and as you're saying with the Japanese family across the street, if we could do that, and this kind of goes on to a conversation that me and Son Soul Lex was having about building our own, you know, our own system. You know, if we adopt these group economics and carry on that type of program in our households, that will help us minimize that housing injustice that we encounter, because it's like, okay, not only are we contributing to one household and then branching off into another 5 years, we're all getting that same education and we're educating our kids in the same process that, hey, this is how we are going to grow. This is how we're going to avoid that nonsense that's going on out there. You don't showboat. If you're going to showboat, that means you're ready to, you need to be up out of here. You don't need to be in here showboating this, that, and the other, because we have a well-oiled machine, and now you're pouring water in the oil and you're causing dysfunction.
Right.
So, you know, that's one of those things that I think a lot of us need to grab on and look to doing, because, you know, people always coming from out of the country, and, you know, a lot of us are complaining, although we have, you know, a strike against us historically, but they come over here, they do this group economics, and they're flourishing. And it's like, they're not even a lot of them that I've seen around here. They're not, you know, showboating and living above their means, but they are very wealthy, very comfortable. And it's like they have their own issues being here, but as far as injustice, it's like they kind of minimize it because they do what they're doing.
We have here in Detroit, or outside Detroit, you heard probably about Dearborn Heights. We have large Arabic communities that do that. They believe in paying it forward. If you come over, you know, basically they're already set up, and you know, as long as you're going to work, however, you are to pay it forward once you get on your feet, so that you can move on, and then they can bring another family over. And the crazy part is, here in Michigan, we're finding out that Dearborn Heights, even though they've built a major community of their culture, they're being the highest tax possibly in the nation, not only in the city or in the state, but in the nation. And so they're putting forth a major lawsuit towards, you know, city of Detroit to find out why. You know, like T spoke about that $100 million. You see the look on my face, that $600 million that is unexplainable for overtaxation. It's affecting everyone. It's affecting households coast to coast without an end, or we're just going to kind of brush up under the rug. There's no refund. There's not even a procedure of how we're going to move forward to correct the situation.
Right. So moving past that, how do we overcome retaliation when it comes to protecting yourself against housing injustice?
You want to go? Go ahead, T.
Educate, again, we're going to break it down. Educating the neighborhood, making sure we walk people through the process. Like, I tend to say this all the time. I was a cheer coach, and basically I whispered in my cheerleader ear, hey, the apple is red. By the time it went around those 25 girls, they said the apple fell off the tree. Somebody smashed it. You know what I'm saying? So you need to understand that that's what you got to do when you're educating the neighborhood. You can't just make education for somebody that's giving people information that's to an educated person. You have to break stuff down to, hey, I need you to understand this, and if you don't understand, can you say more?
Right.
Second, we have to come up with a plan. You know, every tree start off with a seed, roots, and then the trunk into the branches. So we have to make plans, constantly making plans and going over those plans. And sometimes you have to realize plans will change, but make sure you line up whatever you're doing, that if they're talking about housing in the legislation or in any kind of political area, and especially if it's a vote, make sure you participate on it. Make sure you make changes. And then we need a friend of mine, she ran for office a while ago, and she dared people, hey, I want you to spend $27 to a Black-owned business in our area and keep the $27 flowing. So if you did $27 at the mom and pop pizza place, you should do $27 at the ice cream place, the mom and pop ice cream place, which those two businesses should be spending $27 on a Black-owned their stocking or things like that, you know. And that was something simple. That was just $27.
Right.
And it made sense that you were definitely supporting your Black businesses and also keeping the money into your community. You know, when you have Black clubs, instead of waiting on the city to come plow your stuff, y'all pay dues. Y'all could pay a plower to come out, and the city's supposed to reimburse them. It's things you got to make possible for you and your community that's going to be for you and your community. You know what I'm saying? I hate to bring FUBU up, but you know, was it for us, by us? And we should use that for real, for us, by us in our community, and make sure we're overcoming things. And, you know, it's hard to overcome if you've been incarcerated, or it's hard to overcome if you've been raped or something like that. So we need to do a lot of healing sessions and trauma. You know, it's going to take people time to heal, but during this time we're going to jump over hurdles, that we're going to train our legacy people that you have something to fight for. You need your community, and we need to stick together no matter what.
And I want to add to that. She mentioned trauma. Believe it or not, people will use trauma against you.
Yes, they will.
Right off the top.
And it's like this. As soon as you get ready to bring something to light, they always say you better make sure that your door is squeaky clean before you do so, because they're gonna come. You got to have your ducks in order. I wrote that down. Have your house in order.
Yes.
You know, basically, when you bring something forward, they're gonna try to find something to minimize you, minimize your statement, minimize your community, and say, "Oh, that's not true. Do you know that so and so did this?" They'll take the ownership off of them and reverse it back on you. You become the victim. And so it's like you become defeated, but you have to keep fighting. So how do you overcome retaliation? You have to have your ducks in order. You know, you can't go into a fight and not know have knowledge of the type of fight that you're about to get into. You got to know what you're talking about. Like T said, educate yourself, but be really ready to go in it for the long haul, not just for the short temporary fix, because people will say, "Oh, that's all you want? Okay, I'll give you that." And then all of a sudden later on, you're like, "That's not what I really wanted." Well, that's what you asked for. Right. So you have to be mindful of retaliation. Just be ready to fight for the long haul, and know and understand what the the retaliation could be on all sides. You got to look at everything at a 360-degree angle.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's good information. So with that, how should people organize within their communities? Basically, because I know for me, I live in a decent little neighborhood. On my particular cul-de-sac, I am one of 3 Black homeowners. We don't have a what's that, the home whatever thing going on around here.
Association.
We don't have a homeowners association, but you know, everybody is pretty much to themselves. So I don't see a lot of the things that are going on in a lot of these communities that are, you know, predominantly minority or Black, or where there's, a Black family in they're a minority in their community and they're facing all these struggles. So how do people organize within their community to prevent this housing injustice?
Well, that's deep because I've been there before. So my story to that is that my mom got caught into the mortgage scheme back in the days, the balloon mortgage issue. But because my stepson, I don't call any of my kids step, but one of my youngest son, the one that's 23, he had an IEP issue. Like he couldn't get into the schools to get, his IEP done. So the house that my mother was going through the balloon mortgage was in a suburban area of Detroit. So I basically strategized that I'm going in this place. I don't know how long I'm going to be there because I'm only going to pay so much on this high ass rent, you know what I'm saying? Or her mortgage. And, but I knew that I wanted to get my son an IEP because it was better schools out there. It was, predominantly white. And I went to the school before I moved into place. I went to the school and organized them. When can my son get his IEP? So with that being said, for a while, a good 7 years, I didn't see my neighborhood like it was, but I'm a cheer coach. So I had to come back to my neighborhood all the time. And I just watched about 3 or 4 homes across the street from the field just become dilapidated when it used to be you seen neighbors help you, you seen neighbors help you with your porch, your things like that you need. So outsider looking in, when I used to come down to Detroit area to be the cheer coach, I organized among my parents, the parents that I was dealing with. I organized with my girls because I needed them to have etiquette, training and understanding that you're being loved. You should love yourself first. So you got to sometimes put yourself back either in your old neighborhood or in neighborhoods that's predominantly Black and brown communities. And you have to build power with them. You have to build power. You have to tell them your voice is powerful. If you want to do a small business, your small business is supposed to be powerful. Teaching your kids, like we said from day one, about life itself, because at the end of the day, after 18 years, it's a big percentage of parents that throw their kids out. So to organize a community, you have to kind of step yourself back into the bad areas so they won't be gentrified, because you look up, they're going to be predominantly white again too. And then where are our people at? Where are they stuck in?
I want to add to that too. How do you organize your community? I learned by working in the school system and actually volunteering in the school system. You know how they have like the PTO meetings, the families, come in and they talk and they get organized. And when the parents are not happy about something, they go up against the school board, or you have to organize, get the parents together, say, hey, this is what's about to happen at the school. Well, those same tactics I used in my community to research and empower and find out what was going on in my community. And I started attending community leadership meetings to hear the issues and find out where people were living at, and then say, hey, you know what? That sort of thing is happening in my community. How can we work together? And then the more you speak about it and you get your word out, other communities may say, hey, you know what? I'm having that same issue in my community too. How can we help? How can we get together? How can we bounce ideas off of one another? So that's a form of organizing. Another form of organizing is literally knocking on doors or block clubs. T mentioned block clubs earlier in the beginning. Getting the block clubs together, sitting down, people use those potlucks, or, they come together and they speak about what's going on in their community so that they can get organized and the changes, or they'll sit there and they start gossiping at the end of the driveway by the mailbox and say, hey, did you see what's going on here? Did you see them building up down here? Let's do something about it. Then all of a sudden you start having men and women getting together. But what I'm noticing in like a community like mine, we have a community where it is predominantly African-American women. At least 60 to 80% of women are the ones renting and leasing and being the head of their households. So naturally, they're the ones who have to step forward to try to organize. And they're seeking assistance from their male, counterpart, their boo, their boyfriend, their soon-to-be husband, their significant other, whatever you may be. But that person may not be as supportive of them and supporting and bringing forth issues. That's very concerning, because at the end of the day, it affects the entire household. It affects the community. Closed mouths don't get fed, as one would say. So when you organize, it's important to find out what's going on in your community. Turn on the news. Get what some of these. I think I have the Ring. I have the Ring, and then it's like Ring Neighbors, and then there's another app I have now called the Citizens app. You can kind of see some things that's going on in your community, and when you see it happening, you have to organize to put a stop to a lot of things and get in front of it.
Yeah, I got that Ring and Ring community and all that. So, but again, I don't deal with all of those problems that other people deal with. So I'm glad that y'all were able to speak on that, because I know a lot of people probably are unaware and uninformed, and that's definitely good information to put out. But yeah, that's some good information to put out. So lastly, how do people seek out information properly? Because we already know there's neighbor so-and-so could say this, or I could do a Google search on this, but that Google search might not hit exactly what they need. They're unfamiliar with going to their county office or their state office or whatever the case may be. So what is the best way for people to seek out information?
So with organizing, Soummer tell you when I first met her, I'm like, hey, what's your address? What's your zip code? Because I need to let you know who your city. She already knew. Well, she was very well versed on everybody in her office, but I still made a guideline with her. And I'm like, well, the people in your neighborhood that's under your same zip code is the same, person. It might be even her whole community. So you have to really, again, educate people on what they are. And then we check in with our people, because we use voters lists. We use membership lists, we use door knocking lists, and we also had a canvassing team that go out and talk to people and just get their information, and sometimes have them pay dues to the organization I work for. But you have to make sure that if you know the information, give it to them. If Auntie Sue gave you the wrong information, still follow up and look on Google. Both city council have safety and building inspection. If you need anything, hey, who can help me if my house is falling apart, or who can help me with this? They have to make simple calls, but effectively doing actions with people that got self-interest that are like if we find 50 people in their house falling apart, and we used to have a neighborhood services that used to help them, where's that services money out? Well, I'm gonna tell you, again, they slid on the ballot that we didn't need it anymore. So now we have to make sure we looking up resources, re-looking up the resources, making sure you follow the money. So when housing money come down, what resources did they go to, so you can send your community people in with making sure you knock on your neighbor's door. Hey, I know we don't talk, but here goes some vital information. I have a couple of members now that have started neighborhood newspapers in their neighborhood, because they don't have the capacity to go out and knock, but they can make a newsletter and tell you what's going on and give you resources in that. Once we know about resources for your zip code, your district, you should some way get it out to people. I sometimes inbox people on Facebook. Hey, are you still in Detroit, and what zip code are you in? And did you know about these services if we have them, or if they're did you know this service closed down? Do your neighborhood still need it? Because all the community centers for kids are gone. All the parks and recreation are gone. We have nowhere for our kids to go. And it's like, all this land out here, what's going on? So you have to make sure you make committees and people to back up, so that we can make sure that we can seek the right information and go about it in a productive way that's going to make changes in our community.
And then King, you mentioned that you are in your community. Sometimes if you wanted to, it's good when you have a resident like yourself to say, hey, you know what? I want to throw a small get together, but I want to invite my local council person. Or have them to go to one of their meetings, so that the community can get to know the person who they they actually voted for a little further, on a more non-professional level, I should say, just very comfortable level, so that the people can ask questions. and get their answers, which they will not get possibly at a city council meeting. Some issues could be addressed. You'll start to hear people say, well, you know what, this is going on down the street. How are we going to deal with it? And then you're going to have other people speak about it. And then it starts to apply pressure. And then you follow up. So when you seek you get information, you seek it out, or you may see something that's going on in your community. You haven't heard anybody else talking about it. Mm-hmm. Like she said, you can form a community newsletter or ask people, say, hey, give a call, and so we can find out more information. What do you know about it? It really, really helps. But you need to organize and to verify information that you do receive. Don't just trust it. Just, hearsay. Like T gave an example about an apple. By the time it finished, it was something totally different. Right. And information that you seek may not be necessary for your but I'm gonna say it a little different. Information that you receive may not pertain to the neighborhood or community that you live in. And so the needs of your community may not be the same needs in another community. I should say that.
Good stuff.
Definitely. Well, again, we want to welcome or thank you two ladies for coming on to our show. I can't tell you, I'll be honest with you, I had no clue this was going on, in your city. So I'm sure our listeners will definitely be thinking about this information and practicing it. That's something me and King have always said. We give you this platform in the hopes that the information that we share, you can actually apply. And I think we have two young ladies on our show tonight that are definitely giving you information you can apply. So with that being said, I just want to thank you both for coming on. And at any time, I mean, literally anytime you guys want to come back, please do so. We don't want to be one of those podcast shows where we'll be like, well, thank you for coming on, but then we don't follow back up with you. So again, please come back.
I think T, when you find out some more information, and I want to come with you because I'm gonna find out some more information as well about the CARES Act, update about the CDC moratorium, the rental evictions, know your rights. If anybody calls in with questions about that, maybe we can follow up too afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me to your show. I hate that my alarm was clowning on us because I got PTSD over it, just to let you know. But I'm glad that we're sharing this information. We can chuckle about some things, but yes, we will give you an update. Anytime it's dealing with housing, I'm not the only one. I am renters and tenants, but we also have home ownership committee and things like that, because that's what Soummer should be in the home ownership, but hey, the city did some things where she straddled the fence. She really don't know where she is. She's supposed to own her house, but she's straddling the fence. So thank you so much. And anytime you guys want to reach out, and believe it or not, in all major cities, the rural areas are going through this because they're doing it on purpose to gentrify the areas they want back. Because before, no one wanted their downtown area. Now all of a sudden it's so lavish to everybody. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. All the homeless people used to have out in the downtown area. But I do appreciate you guys. And anytime you just want to kick game, want to know about some training we do, we down for the count.
That's right. Thank you both so much. And hopefully, again, I see it was very informative. T, thank you for even joining me. This was amazing, and I hope and I pray that both of you have much success moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I can't echo Sun Soul's ex's sentiments enough. I appreciate the information that you have delivered. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your knowledge most of all, and y'all are welcome back anytime. Definitely stay in touch. Some of you, we always talk, but T definitely will look you up. Anything. Lastly, for people who would like to reach out to you and contact you for further information on what we discuss that can help them if they're not in Detroit, wherever they are. Do you have contact information that you can give them?
Yes. You can email me at T as in Tom, E as in elephant, N as in Nancy, E as in elephant, S as in Sam with the A on the end as Apple at DetroitAction.org. That's especially dealing with housing issues and what cohorts we can find in your city. Also, you can give me a text at 313-989-2131. Again, my name is Tanisha Sanders, but please call me T. And I'm here to work with any cities that we can help each other, because a city next to me may have laws that my people need, and you may need laws to look into that you may need. So we all family regardless.
Yes, indeed.
And for me, again, I'm Soummer Crawford. You can email me at S as in Sam, N as in Nancy, R as in Robert Crawford. So that's snrcrawford@gmail.com. And also, I'm going to give my telephone number out, but a lot of people, it's best to text me so I can make sure that I can reply back to you in a timely manner. That's 313-673-3856. So we're here in the Detroit area. T and I are working, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing some things a little bit more outside Detroit very soon.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. The King and I Life podcast. Again, you can find us on every major podcast platform. Definitely tune in, because we have African American historical figures, places, and events that we're doing. It's not only Black History Month. We do it pretty much every month. We try to do it every day, but it's out there. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, soon to come Patreon. And that's all I have.
Once again, we want to thank y'all for tuning in to the King and I Life podcast. Each one teach one. These young ladies have definitely dropped a wealth of knowledge and information on us. So again, apply it, please. With that being said, peace.